Down syndrome. Today, though, there is even more anxiety for the family of Jennifer Schweiger. The body of a young child was found buried in a fresh grave on Staten Island last night. It was a young girl. The question now, is it their daughter or another family's daughter who has been suffering the same tragedy? We have team coverage on the search now, beginning with John Slattery, who's live on Staten Island. John?
Carol, the body found last night has not yet been positively identified. The medical examiner's office has said merely it is the body of a young girl. And the police are helping the medical examiner in his investigation.
We've provided Dr. Gross with dental charts and fingerprints to try to determine the identity of the person. After that, then Dr. Gross is going to be conducting tests as to what the cause of death was.
Police say they could know later today or tomorrow if the body is that of Jennifer Schweiger. One of the volunteers who helped in the search is a friend of Jennifer's parents.
They're very, very upset. We did not have any confirmation on the body yet, and we were just sitting and waiting.
Among those volunteers who actually found the body were George Kramer, a retired fireman, and his wife Nancy, who'd searched the area before and decided to go back to a mound they had seen.
There was like a soft mound of dirt there. And I just kind of felt sick to my stomach. I felt like she was there. And I told my husband, I said, she's there. And then we started digging with sticks, and it was soft dirt.
Now, the body was found in that shallow grave about 8 o'clock last night. Channel 2's Mary Murphy was at the site all night long. Here is her report.
It was a place they had checked before, turning up nothing. But when a retired fireman returned just before 8 p.m. last night, he dug into the mound of dirt he had noticed last Saturday near Building 27 and discovered flesh, then a hand and foot. Medical examiner Elliot Gross made the finding official at 2 a.m.
We have a body of short stature that was covered with dirt and is going to have to be examined tomorrow.
As soon as the body was removed by ambulance at 3 a.m., the testing began to determine if this was indeed Jennifer Schweiger, the 12-year-old girl with Down syndrome who disappeared 5 weeks ago, last seen walking hand in hand with a local drifter. Last week, police arrested 43-year-old Andre Rand, a convicted child sex offender, and charged him with kidnapping Jennifer. Now they want to know if Rand is connected to the disappearance of other Staten Island girls, and whether any more bodies are buried on the old Willowbrook grounds.
There may be other bodies there, we don't know.
Do you have any reason?
And there may be other evidence connected with this body.
Police say they found the body about 100 feet from Andre Rand's old campsite. Residents report he had lived here on and off for many years. And one man told us that several weeks after Jennifer Schweiger was reported missing, he heard a child scream near Building 27 here on the Willowbrook grounds.
We spotted the girl with the guy in the building. They had some kind of light.
We saw the small shadow and somebody big. It was dark. And we screaming, who's there? And the girls tried to scream and somebody covered him out.
Troncosa told us he reported his findings to the police, including the fact there were fresh soda cans and blankets at the site. Later, we asked Staten Island District Attorney William Murphy about reports his office had planted bugs in a church mission where Rand was staying before his arrest.
And we understand that a bug picked up Mr. Rand saying they're looking in the wrong place, they won't find her.
No comment.
Does that mean it's so?
No comment.
The search ended for the night at 3 a.m. to be resumed later. Police don't know what they'll find. At the Staten Island Developmental Center, I'm Mary Murphy, Channel 2 News.
I'm Chris Borgen on Staten Island. Here on Wardwell Avenue, the Schweiger family remain in their brown and yellow home, waiting for the word. The light on their tiny porch remains lit, not forgotten, just an example of their shining hope still undimmed by time. Over a month since Jennifer disappeared, or by events, the discovery last night of that body in the shallow 2-foot grave in the Willowbrook woods. The neighbors huddled in small groups, quietly talking, their presence near the Schweiger home, the silent encouragement of family to family. Today there are yellow ribbons on the trees, the porches, the railings of the houses, another testimony to prayerful hope. Everything is quiet on this street. The wind chimes softly sound their punctuation to the muted voices. Even the children in their play are quiet. There is the occasional car slowly driven down the block, the driver to pause and whisper a word and then move on. Everything and everyone is waiting here on Wardwell Avenue, and the light on the Schweiger porch remains lit. I'm Chris Borgen, Channel 2 News.
Right now here on Staten Island, we're waiting for word from the medical examiner's office. Police will say nothing as to Andre Rand's possible statements to police, and they'll also be questioning him and trying to investigate as to whether or not he may be connected with any of the 5 other missing women and children, women and little girls here on Staten Island in recent years. That's it from Staten Island. Carol?
All right, John, thank you. We'll hear more from you later today.
City Schools Chancellor Nathan Quinones says that he is retiring. His announcement
with January 1st. The Chancellor was not available for comment. He remains inside the building now.
The little girl was found last night. All day, the family of Jennifer Schweiger stayed in their home, waiting for identification of a body. In the words of a friend, hoping their heartache will end.
Relieved that it's over, that we finally found her, and we can give her a decent burial and put her family's mind to rest.
Last night, on the grounds of what was formerly Willowbrook State School, a volunteer search party found a body in a shallow grave, a body missing one finger, just like Jennifer Schweiger. 12-year-old Jennifer, a Down syndrome child, had disappeared 5 weeks ago, last seen walking with a drifter. Last week, police arrested 43-year-old Andre Rand, a convict who pitched camp on the grounds of Willowbrook. He was arrested for Jennifer's kidnapping. After an extensive search of the grounds, last night, one volunteer, retired fireman George Kramer, made the discovery.
All I seen was, when we were asked to leave, was the feet and hands.
On Saturday, Kramer had noticed a mound of dirt, but disregarded it. Last night, he and others decided they should return.
And went back to the same location and discovered that the ground was soft the way he thought it was. He stuck a stick in, and it did go down all the way.
Today, more searching continued on the grounds, more digging with more dogs, all going on way out of our sight. The search is for other missing people on Staten Island whom police say might be here.
Basically, they are missing person cases that have occurred on Staten Island that have not been resolved. They involve 3 children and an adult, as the chief has indicated.
So the search on the property at Willowbrook continues. The search for little Jennifer is over, but the search for other bodies, which has now ended for this afternoon, is expected to resume tomorrow and take many days, possibly weeks, before police are finally decided that bodies are here or not. That's it, Jim.
John, I realize the police are looking primarily for people who are reported missing from Staten Island, but did anyone mention the name of Eitan Pates?
No, that name has not come up here. Merely 3 young women, 3 girls rather, and 2 young women who have been missing on Staten Island. Those are the only ones mentioned here.
John, thank you. Carol.
Well, of course, throughout this ordeal, the Schweiger family has been grateful for all of the help and the support from family and friends, even neighbors who did not know them personally. And everywhere today, there were signs of sympathy for the Schweigers. Yellow ribbons on trees and houses, residents gathering to find out the latest details and wishing for good news. A light on the Schweigers' porch was a symbol of the brightness of their hope until the very last. But when the dreaded word finally came, there was little that any of them could do but offer their prayers and share their tears.
She's the 12-year-old girl with Down syndrome who disappeared more than a month ago. We have 2 reports, beginning with David Navarro, as searchers discovered the body last night.
Shadowy figures in the night were emergency service police unearthing the body of a young girl that was found in a shallow grave at the former Willowbrook State School. With painstaking care, the entire gravesite and body was dug up and transported to the medical examiner's office as evidence. The fresh grave was discovered by volunteers who had snuck past security guards last night to search for 12-year-old Jennifer Schweiger, a Staten Island girl with Down syndrome that has been missing since July 9th. The body was found 150 yards away from one of the encampments on the grounds of the Staten Island Developmental Center that former Willowbrook aide Andre Rand is believed to have lived.
We will be putting it into grids and searching very methodically to see if there is any other persons that are buried.
On a hunch by this volunteer searcher and retired New York City fireman that the gravesite was first discovered while he was searching the grounds on Saturday at the center near Rand's encampment. A recreational hunter who was comfortable in the woods, his attention was caught by a 15-foot wide span of earth behind building number 27 that just didn't look right, an area that had been completely crisscrossed by police and search dogs hundreds of times.
We had a feeling that something was down here, and my wife said to me, she says, I'm almost positive that this girl is down under here.
Kramer felt in his heart that he was onto something, but didn't return to the site until yesterday, this time accompanied by 12 other searchers.
I dug a little more, and I hit something soft and looked and seen white, which wasn't natural. So
what was it that you hit that was white?
Presumably flesh, and my own assumption was an arm.
Late this afternoon, those fears were confirmed as a mournful relative read a quickly prepared statement.
Karen and Ken Schweiger have been officially informed by the police that a definite identification has been made of their daughter Jennifer. The last 5 weeks have been extremely difficult ones for the family, but the support and love that has been given to them by family and friends has sustained and strengthened them.
Reporting in Staten Island, David Navarro, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
This is Art McFarland in the westerly section of Staten Island. It is as though Jennifer Schweiger's neighbors are part of her immediate family. Everyone who lives in the neighborhood has shared the hope that led to the search, as they now share the tears resulting from the tragedy.
You're talking about, pure innocence. This was a child that never knew, really never knew anger, never knew anything except simple love, and everybody, kept their eye out.
Yellow ribbons can be seen throughout the neighborhood, symbolizing the strength with which residents hoped that Jennifer would soon come home.
She's somebody who lived here, and it's been very upsetting to all of us, and now it seems like it's over, and it's more overwhelming.
Many of the people in Jennifer's neighborhood belong to the Holy Family Parish, only a few blocks from her home. Here we spoke to a parish priest about the spirit in the community over the search for Jennifer.
They pull together to the point where they're not even relatives, some of them, but the relatives that come in, but they feel even closer with the people who they lived with across the street and the area, immediate area.
The parish hosted a briefing session today given by members of the group that spent countless hours searching for Jennifer.
People were very determined that, hey, we can't have this in our community, and we have to find Jennifer, and we cannot stop until we do it. They were very determined.
A lot of good people did a lot of good things, and that's the only positive thing that's come out of this. A lot of people really put a lot of effort into it.
Some residents tell us the closeness that has developed will probably be around for a very long time. Others admit that based on the tragedy of the Schweiger family, this quiet neighborhood will never quite be the same. On Staten Island, Art McFarland, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
And the strange case of the hospital orderly.
Examiner's office. The child's body unearthed in a Staten Island grave last night has been identified as that of 12-year-old Jennifer Schweiger.
The little girl with Down syndrome disappeared early last month, as you'll recall. Her body was identified by her missing finger and from dental records. Colleen Hunt reports now on the discovery of Jennifer's body and the search for possibly even more missing Staten Island children.
Jennifer Schweiger's parents remained hopeful right up until the bitter end today, when it was confirmed that the body of the little girl found on Staten Island was their daughter. The family was in seclusion as an autopsy was being performed on 12-year-old Jennifer. The cause of death has not been established. She was nude, but it has not yet been determined if she was sexually assaulted. Jennifer's body was found after a month-long search less than 150 yards from the campsite of Andre Rand. Rand is the homeless man who's been charged with kidnapping Jennifer on the grounds of the Staten Island Developmental Center.
This area had been searched a number of times. At one point, we had 700 officers cumulatively at that time searching.
Despite the many searches of the area, it was an eerie, intuitive feeling by one of the volunteers that she was standing near Jennifer's body that led to the girl's discovery.
There was a mound of dirt, and I went over and I stood on it, and I don't know, it was soft, and I just felt, I said to my husband that she was there. I felt that she was there.
It was last Saturday that Nancy Kramer was overcome by that feeling. She asked her husband George to check around the area carefully. The hunch paid off. He noticed a patch of ground around a tree. That ground was a different color and consistency from the earth around it. But just then security forces came by and cleared the volunteers off the property. The thought of the ground played in his mind for 5 days, and he knew he had to come back.
So I took my shovel and proceeded to dig down approximately a foot. At that time, I got a strong smell come up out of it.
I took my shovel, scraped down in there because I had felt something soft, and I exposed something white that looked like flesh.
Kramer alerted other volunteers of the group Friends for Jennifer, who uncovered the body. Now that Jennifer has been found, police are investigating the disappearances of 3 other Staten Island children and a missing employee of the developmental center. Rand was previously questioned in 2 out of those 4 disappearances. Police are searching the woods by his campsite for other bodies.
We have at least 40 people out there, 6 canines, bringing in more people, a lot of shovels, 1 backhoe, and maybe more.
The volunteers say if police want their help in looking for any of the other missing people, they'd be happy to help. On Staten Island, this is Colleen Hunt reporting.
Some members of the Jewish Defense League came clean today.
Some reports on the tragic ending to a massive search effort.
Family and friends mourned after a detective from the city's Missing Persons Bureau brought the long-awaited but unfortunate news to the home of Karen and Kenneth Schweiger. A body found in a shallow grave at the former Willowbrook State Mental Facility is their daughter, Jennifer, a 12-year-old Down syndrome victim.
And now the Schweigers can start to put their lives back together again, thanks to the family, neighbors, and friends who for over a month conducted daily searches until they found Jennifer.
I saw her hand, but we could not get down far enough without injuring any of the skin, so we stopped.
And thanks to George Kramer, who had the nerve to sneak onto the Willowbrook grounds and search an area where he noticed some loose dirt.
Why did you do this when the police had almost given up hope?
Well, the people that were searching for him hadn't. They'd still be going out now, and they'd be still going out probably a month from now. These people wanted to find that girl.
A 43-year-old homeless man who lived in the woods only yards from where the grave was found was arrested last week and charged with kidnapping Jennifer. Police still don't know if Andre Rand is connected to the disappearance of 7-year-old Holly Hughes and another Staten Island girl missing since 1983. But some 40 rescue workers using a backhoe and 6 dogs are now scouring Willowbrook for those 2 girls.
We will be putting it into grids and searching very methodically to see if there is any other persons that are buried or had been buried.
Rand, who is charged with abducting Jennifer, now could be charged with murder as well, but the Staten Island District Attorney's Office says it won't discuss that question until tomorrow. Reg, Jennifer?
Kevin, with all the police and volunteers in on this search, how was it that George Kramer found the body?
It's really a fascinating story. George Kramer told me today that the last witnesses saw Jennifer and this man walk into that complex. Never saw him came out. He just figured that the body would be somewhere near where that man lived in the woods.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. In other news,
with Down syndrome was found murdered and buried in the woods last week. Mary Murphy reports as little Jennifer is mourned.
And those who helped search for Jennifer say that their search is not over. They'll keep looking for at least 2 other little girls also missing.
It's just one chapter is closed. It's not the end of the road. We're still concerned about Jennifer's clothing and maybe finding something, that'll help with the other children.
The man charged with kidnapping Jennifer Schweiger, Andre Rand, has told the Daily News that he did not kill her. He says that he even broke down and cried when he heard that her body had been found.
Ever since 1940,
that's a big consolation.
The man charged with kidnapping Jennifer Schweiger told a local newspaper today, "I did not kill her." Convicted sex offender Andre Rand said he cried from his cell at Kings County Hospital when her body was discovered. Today, the little girl was buried in a white dress. The Bishop of Staten Island called it a symbol of her perfect innocence.
That dear, lovable child never even knew what sin is.
The volunteers who refused to give up searching in 90-degree heat, brushing off bees and ticks in the Willowbrook woods, say their job is not over yet. They will now regroup and search for other missing children on Staten Island. And while Jennifer Schweiger is buried in Lakewood, New Jersey, where her family plans to move, police continue their grim searching on the Willowbrook grounds, still not knowing if other children are buried there. On Staten Island, I'm Mary Murphy, Channel 2 News.
Another police
Did last week with the discovery of her body on Staten Island. David Navarro has been following the story of Jennifer Schweiger.
Friends and family arrived early at the Holy Family Church in Staten Island today. Among the close to 900 mourners, George Kramer, the retired fireman who found little Jennifer's grave last week.
What emotions are you feeling after this?
Broken heart. Lost for words.
I can't talk right now. I understand.
Donna and Charles Catuno, virtual strangers to the Schweigers before Jennifer's disappearance. 2 days after, they became the volunteer coordinators of the largest missing child search in Staten Island history.
Every searcher that has been out there turned into a new family. The Schweigers are the head of the family, and everyone else follows them.
A little after 10 o'clock, the Schweiger motorcade arrived. 5.5 weeks of searching over. Now Karen and Ken's son, Ken Jr., is an only child. The tiny white and gold casket containing the 12-year-old girl with Down syndrome was brought silently before Cardinal O'Connor as he administered a blessing.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
It's really a sad thing that this really had to come. We were really hoping to have Jennifer alive.
After the ceremony, an emotional Cardinal O'Connor embraced the Schweigers before they all drove to a private burial at a cemetery in New Jersey. Today marks a sad end to a chapter in the Jennifer Schweiger story, but still sitting in Kings County Hospital undergoing psychiatric testing is the man accused of her abduction, with quite possibly the whereabouts of 3 other missing children locked inside his mind. Reporting in Staten Island, David Navarro, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
That man, Andre Rand, has been charged with kidnapping Jennifer, but not with her death. And he says he did not kill her. Rand said he broke down and cried when he learned that Jennifer's body had been found.
Fear of crime killed Wilfred Pina and his 5-year-old son in the Williams.
John Cardinal O'Connor blessed the simple white casket as it entered Holy Family Parish Church, the church where only recently Jennifer Schweiger had been confirmed and where her family had worshipped for years.
The day of her baptism, Jennifer put on Christ. The day of Christ coming, may she be clothed with glory.
More than 500 people came to say goodbye. Family, friends, the volunteers who searched for 12-year-old Jennifer. But even the huge auditorium set aside by the church for today's services could not accommodate everyone. Many stood outside listening on the loudspeaker. Bishop Patrick Ahern, vicar of the Staten Island Diocese, delivered the homily. He called Jennifer a dear, lovable child, a gift from God.
God did withhold from her some of the gifts that he gives to others. But to her he gave the most wonderful gift of all, the gift of perfect innocence. No wonder everybody loved her so.
He praised Jennifer's parents, Ken and Karen Schweiger. He said, quote, "All have been amazed by the nobility with which you have borne your pain." He praised, too, the hundreds of volunteers who searched for Jennifer, singling out Donna Catuno, who organized a volunteer effort in a cause that united Toto strangers.
At this point, I feel like she was my own child. We have spent so many hours looking for her. It's like looking for your own child. And the way I will remember Jennifer is the flyers that we sent out, that beautiful smile on her face.
Jennifer disappeared from her home on July 9th, and for weeks, volunteers concentrated their efforts on the nearby abandoned grounds of the Willowbrook School. Finally, last Wednesday, her body was discovered in a shallow grave there, near a campsite used by a man police have arrested as a suspect. 43-year-old Andre Rand, called a loner with a history of mental problems. He also has been named in connection with other missing children. Children who have now become the focus of a new search by volunteers who say Jennifer's death has only spurred them on.
I have 3 children of my own. That's one of the main reasons, and I live in the neighborhood, and I didn't want this to continue. Anybody calls me, I'm available. And wherever they send me, I'll be there.
And as the casket left the church, O'Connor gripped the Schweigers in an emotional embrace. And then, escorted by police motorcycles, Jennifer Schweiger began the journey to her final resting place. Alice Look, News 4, Staten Island.
Andre Rand, the man suspected of killing the young girl, says he had nothing to do with it. He is scheduled to return to court September 4th following psychiatric testing at Kings County Hospital.
Still ahead on News 4, accident victims claim a young Staten Island girl who suffered from Down syndrome
was the alleged murder victim of a kidnapper. Her body was found in a shallow grave last week following a month-long search. Eric Shawn attended the funeral service and has this report.
They gathered to say goodbye to Jennifer Schweiger. Her small white and gold casket was carried before 600 mourners at the Holy Family Catholic Center. Her parents, Karen and Ken Schweiger, were joined in their grief by John Cardinal O'Connor, who in celebrating the memorial mass compared Jennifer to a saint.
On the day of her baptism, Jennifer put on Christ. On the day of Christ's coming, may she be clothed with glory.
Jennifer, afflicted with Down syndrome, disappeared last month. After an intense and grueling search by hundreds of volunteers on the grounds of the former Willowbrook Mental Hospital, her body was found last week in a shallow grave near the campsite of Andre Rand, the homeless convicted child sex offender who has been charged with her disappearance and is a suspect in the cases of 3 other Staten Island girls. In a Daily News interview, Rand denies he killed Jennifer. "The only time I saw her was when police showed me her picture," he is quoted as saying. "When I heard she was found dead, I cried. I just broke down." But at the service, there were only words of comfort and consolation.
It's a great gift. Jennifer was an immense gift, an indescribable gift that God gave to this world. So many people don't begin to understand that.
It hit us all. She was a great little girl.
To me, she feels like she was my own child.
Among the mourners, besides friends and family, were many of the volunteers who spent long, exhausting hours searching for Jennifer. Even as she is being laid to rest, they vow their mission is not over and plan to return to the woods tonight to search for more bodies.
It's just disgusting what goes on, and it has to be stopped. It just has to be stopped. Something has to be done.
Jennifer Schweiger was buried in Lakewood, New Jersey. She was 12 years old. I'm Eric Shawn in Staten Island.
There was a window and a fire.
Today she was remembered as a child who brought joy into a lot of lives. Frank Grimes reports.
Hundreds of people came to Jennifer Schweiger's funeral this morning at the Holy Family Church on Staten Island. Many of the volunteers who helped police search for her were there. Some were the people who had taken turns praying at the church in 15-minute intervals from 6 a.m. to after midnight every day for most of the 5 weeks Jennifer was missing. Mothers and fathers came holding their children. Only a parent can come close to imagining the horror of losing a child. George Kramer, a retired fireman who found Jennifer's body, joined the others in the church gymnasium for the Mass of the Resurrection. All were there to say goodbye to the Down syndrome-afflicted child who had been so much a part of their lives since July 9th, the day 12-year-old Jennifer was reported missing. That was the day she'd been seen with Andre Rand. Witnesses say Rand had been walking hand-in-hand with her on the old Willowbrook grounds where Rand had a campsite in the woods. Police charged him with kidnapping her. Then last week, Jennifer's nude body was found in a shallow grave 150 yards from Rand's campsite. The medical examiner doesn't know yet how she was killed.
I bless the body of Jennifer.
Mourners stood in the hot sun as Cardinal O'Connor prayed over the small white casket and comforted Jennifer's parents. Inside, the Cardinal explained that a funeral mass is a mass of joy, a celebration that the person who died is now in heaven. The Cardinal said that a funeral mass was also a time to forgive that person for their sins. But he said in Jennifer's case, he would not have to do that, and he called her a saint. He said she lived a life without sin. From the pulpit, he told her mother and father that the joys Jennifer brought to them on earth will continue with her in heaven.
She's going to be reaching down and touching your lives in absolutely marvelous ways.
funeral mass and gave words of comfort to her parents and all those who shared their 5-week vigil.
Really had to come. We were really hoping to have Jennifer alive.
Jennifer's body was discovered last Wednesday on the grounds of the former Staten Island Developmental Center within 150 yards of a campsite once used by the man now held for her kidnapping, Andre Rand. And speaking out for the first time since his arrest,
found a body which could be that of a missing young woman. Our News 9's Robert Miller is standing by live now with the latest on that. Robert?
Sarah Lee, I'm standing on the edge of Wolf's Pond Park in the Princess Bay section of Staten Island. The search for Judith Somerville has been going on since September 9th. She was last seen headed toward a train which would take her to the Staten Island ferry. Judith was 19 years old, a student at Staten Island College. Her pocketbook and umbrella were found in Wolf Pond the day after she disappeared. One of the people who'd been searching for her was the man who discovered the body of 12-year-old Jennifer Schweiger recently on the grounds at Willowbrook.
Gentleman came in with a police dog that had, I should say, a retired police dog. And the man is a police officer off duty, and he brought the dog down to help search. And he kept picking up a scent back here in the woods, off and on. So we decided to go down to a command station and get volunteers to go search the area. And they brought them back, and they found the girl.
The identification is not positive, but the body appears to be that of Judith Somerville.
At this time, the detectives tell me that we are quite certain that some of the items of clothing on the missing girl are those of the girl that is in the shallow grave in there. She had black leotard pants on, which the victim in there has, and a swatch which matches the item that she was wearing when she was last seen.
In addition to the body here in the woods, a woman named Rebecca Fine was found beaten to death last week on a beach in Tottenville. A man named Daniel Stratton, who worked at an area service station, is being sought for questioning in that murder. Right now, there is no known connection between the two killings. Stratton is 6'1", weighs about 180 pounds, and he has not been seen since Rebecca Fine was found murdered. Robert Miller reporting live from Staten Island. Now back to the studio.
Bob, getting back to Miss Somerville, when will a positive ID be made? How long is it going to take?
Well, I just spoke with the medical examiner, Dr. Elliot Gross. He says it's a very meticulous thing, as it was with Jennifer Schweiger, getting the body out, getting the earth that's around the body. It'll probably be tomorrow sometime before they can have a positive identification and some indication of how the person who is in those woods was murdered.
Okay, Bob, thank you.
Turned up the body of murder victim Jennifer Schweiger, and then came the search for a missing college student. She went to class September 9th at the College of Staten Island, then vanished. Tonight, there's a new development in that case, the discovery of a body. Bob O'Brien is reporting from the Tottenville section of Staten Island. Bob?
Cora Ann, the 3-week search for 19-year-old Judith Somerville may have ended this afternoon in a wooded area behind the Tottenville High School.
Around 8:30 this evening, the badly decomposed body of a young woman was removed from the shallow grave in which it was discovered by volunteer searchers this afternoon. At 2:45 today, a group of 4 men picking through these woods saw the body, which was partially covered with twigs, bushes, and mud. Staten Island Police Commander, Assistant Chief Samuel Marino, says although a positive identification has not yet been made, it is believed this is the body of Judith Somerville.
I spoke with the medical examiner, and he tells me that so far all he can determine is that it's a young female, probably white, that's been uncovered. She also had on her possession a watch which matches the description of the watch that Judith had, and also a pair of black leotard pants, which is also on the body.
Is there any way at all to tell how the woman whose body was found here was killed?
No, not at this time. The medical examiner will do that tomorrow. He's asked that the body be removed to the morgue in Manhattan intact, including debris which was around the grave site, and that's where it's being removed as of this moment.
Along Highland Boulevard, less than a mile from the woods where the body was found, is the trailer command post used by the massive volunteer effort known as the Find Judy search team. For more than 3 weeks, close to 1,000 people took part in the search. Lorraine Sorge is the coordinator of the volunteer group We spoke with her after she left the Somerville home this evening. We've been with her parents. What's their situation right now?
Of course, as any parent would do, they're praying that it is not their daughter. And we, as searchers, are praying with them. And until the police come through tomorrow and tell us one way or the other, we will still pray that it's not Judy.
But every indication from the police and the medical examiner seems to conclude that the search for Judith Somerville has ended in the worst possible way. From the Tottenville section of Staten Island, Bob O'Brien, Fox News, Channel 5, back to you, Steve.
Okay, Bob. Meanwhile, there's a new development in the murder of another. Witnesses said she had left her house that morning with a white male. Now, police say they'd like to find Danny Stratton and ask him some questions about the case. He's 21 and had lived on Purdy Place in Staten Island. He had worked at a gas station near the Fine home. Police say Stratton has been seen a couple of times in the past few days in the same Tottenville neighborhood where the body was found today.
Coming up next, was convicted of the kidnapping charges, but the murder charge ended in a hung jury and was dismissed. Rand was charged with the murder of Jennifer Schweiger, who had Down syndrome. Her body was found in a shallow grave near Rand's Staten Island campsite. Witnesses say they saw Rand walking hand in hand with a little girl on July 9th, 1987, the day she disappeared.
And a request for a mistrial today at the child murder